Emergency. Fast-breaking developments in the coronavirus emergency in the U.S. and around the world.
Tonight, coronavirus driving Europe into crisis.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
We're in the middle of a pandemic, and we're suddenly realizing that there are tens of thousands of scientific articles about the coronaviruses that only certain privileged class of people could read them in the world. This specific situation really demonstrates how kind of absurd the idea of a paywall on life-saving science really is. So, realizing I could do something, just one individual person, I mean, that's all it took.
Regardless if it was legal or illegal.
I think that breaking the law to save lives is absolutely worth it.
Are you on your iPhone?
I didn't want to include too much of my home in the shot.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, I'm fine doing it like this. This is Shrine. That's what he goes by on Reddit. He's asked us to hide his identity.
When I started reading about Wuhan in January, I realized that there were people that were dying and that the death rate could be higher as a result of the lack of access to the articles.
In science, publishers exist to provide a credible platform where research can be reviewed, validated, and distributed. And publishers often have paywalls so they can afford to do that. But over time, the market has consolidated, and publishers have started to see huge profit margins. And that has sparked an ongoing debate in the science community. Researchers usually don't get paid for their work. Their study gets exposure, but those growing profits are going to the publishers. And access to this research is expensive. For the general public, it could cost you about $50 for one paper. Institutions and universities often pay millions of dollars every year for subscriptions. It gets even more complicated when you consider the public actually pays for a lot of this research in the first place. The federal government allocates $140 billion every year for R&D, but the average taxpayer then has to pay to access that research. The same thing goes for startups, non-academic researchers, even developing countries. Really anyone who doesn't have access to the institutional financial might to foot the bill.
I talked to a few of my friends about it, and they were angry about this. Everybody was just trying to find a way to support the distribution of these papers. Any little piece of information that we can glean from previous scientific research on pandemics and epidemics and just viruses, vaccines, everything is suddenly becoming relevant. And agencies all over the world need access to all these articles. We were like, okay, we need to prepare these articles for the scientists. No questions asked. Everything has to be at scientists' disposal.
So they downloaded the papers illegally using Sci-Hub, a website that says it provides free access to millions of articles by skirting paywalls. It's known as the Pirate Bay of science. Shrine initially found more than 5,000 papers that mention coronaviruses from 1968 to 2020.
We figured out a way to pull the articles from Sci-Hub that relate to the coronaviruses, and we released them on Reddit, and we got thousands of seeders within hours.
This isn't the first time that paywalls have been at issue during a health crisis. In 2015, when Ebola was ravaging West Africa, a researcher found a medical paper that actually warned of the potential of an Ebola outbreak in Liberia, and even offered some advice on how to stop the transmission. It was published in the 1980s, but the paper was locked behind a paywall, making it mostly inaccessible to one of the poorest countries in the world. In fact, no senior official serving in Liberia's Ministry of Health knew about this paper before the outbreak. It's hard to draw a straight line from the lack of access to research because of a paywall to lives harmed or lost. But Shrine's point is that there should be no impediment to information about a disease, especially to the people on the front lines fighting a pandemic. What you're doing is not exactly legal, right? So how are you kind of navigating that whole situation?
I realized that we needed to, first off, release as many articles as we could without their permission, and secondly, to demand that they continue to release more articles from their archive.
Shrine appealed directly to the publishers themselves through a petition on change.org to plead with publishers to scale back their paywalls.
It felt good to move from this illegal project where we had to be afraid of the law to a legal petition where I was now talking to the publishers directly and getting their approval on what I was asking. We relentlessly petitioned the publishers every day. Fortunately, the petition got hundreds of signatures within a few days. We went from probably a few thousand to now it's over 32,000 papers are unlocked.
For Shrine, the fight isn't done. He's created freeread.org to continue to advocate for this, like petitioning the International Organization of Standards to release information from behind paywalls that would help engineers build ventilators.
We can't let this happen again. In the future, we need to be more prepared, and we need to have all countries on board and all countries with their eyes on the data sets and the science and the research. Just because you're one person who isn't an expert in a field or doesn't have millions of dollars, you can have a role in helping others, and you can have a role in making an impact.
Thanks for watching. For more stories about the people that are exploring solutions on the front lines and working to tackle this global health crisis, check out our COVID-19 coverage on freethink.com.